Welcome to ESVN, the Emma Sports Vigeland Network show. My name is Emma Vigeland. And now that you are here, perhaps you've come over to troll me about not wanting to hang at Tim Poole's skate park. Yes, in my day job, I went and debated right-wing libertarian streamer Tim Poole. Been a bit of a whirlwind, so this episode's going to be kind of short since I did that on Friday and I'm a little behind in my regular kind of workflow, but still lots of news to get to. Please subscribe to this channel, youtube.com/ESVN show. Put on push notifications, like the stream, 5 stars on podcast platforms, all that stuff. And hello to my buddy Bradley Alsop.
Hey guys. Sorry about that. You must have maybe thought I had a traumatic brain injury because I played the wrong.
I did not,
song.
but Bradley, you did have a fun weekend of concert.
Yeah, I was at the Dead and Co shows on Wednesday and Thursday, and then I was also out till like 3 a.m. on Saturday. So
yeah, so
I'm beleaguered.
I have such a woman's mind at some points, like with. Stereotypically
Evil woman's mind.
Well, as I do host my own sports show,
as you're putting on your apron.
Right. But Bradley was kind of quiet today because I think he was a little tired. And in my head, I was like, "Is he mad at me?" And I don't think you are.
Oh, am I mad at you? Oh my God, am I mad at you? Yeah, honestly, because you didn't stay for sushi. That's.
No skating and sushi for me.
Yeah, that's
if you guys,
it's a bridge too far.
I don't know how many.
It's a seaweed wrap too far.
I don't know how many people actually listen to this show who don't listen to the majority of part. I would guess not that many, but hopefully we bring new people in. If you haven't checked it out, check out my debate with Tim Poole. Yeah, insanity. But anyway,
it was great. You did great.
We have actual sports news to get to. We have some NBA trades. We have the NBA draft that went down. I am not a draft bug this year. I get into it when the Knicks pick. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not something that I can fully analyze because I don't have a great knowledge of who the prospects are this year, with the exception of really like the top 5. But Brandon Miller went to, that was the first domino to fall out of Alabama. He went to the Charlotte Hornets, and then Scoot Henderson went to the Portland Trailblazers. And that was we didn't know how that was going to fall after Wembanyama went to the Spurs, which should be a franchise changer if he's able to kind of beef up a little bit. He's tall as hell at what, age 19? Is he 7'3" already?
I think he's 7. He might be. I'll double check. He might be 7'4".
He is wiry, but it's that.
He's 7'4". He's 7'4", but he's 230 pounds, which is like
yes,
the big.
unreal.
Just to give you some context, like for example, like Zion Williamson at like peak performance height and weight is 5 inches shorter than Wembanyama and 50 pounds heavier.
Yeah, and look, these are all.
This is the Chet Holmgren thing as well.
I was about to say but Chet Holmgren
is like 195.
He's less than 200 pounds.
He's 7 foot and 195. So obviously even
Wembanyama's a better
wiry.
athlete.
Totally,
yeah. So this is like there's much more of like a room for error, we should say, with Wembanyama than with Wemby.
And in terms of like landing spot, like I just think.
Oh come on!
I trust the process with the Spurs pretty implicitly, especially with Popovich and RC Buford's like still at the helm there in the coaching in front office. And honestly, this is a team that if you look at some of the stats from last year, some of the more advanced stats, despite being one of the worst teams in the league by record, they were very rarely like super out of games. Like, they weren't getting consistently blown out in games. Like they have a few, I would say, pretty interesting and exciting young players. Keldon Johnson's almost like a vet on that team, despite being only in his mid-20s and a pretty good scorer, but which I think Wemby will complement well with his inside-out versatility, the fact that he can shoot and also drive. If he beefs up a little bit, it'll be scary to have to, kind of react to a 7'4" guy coming at you with all of that length after chasing down a closeout. And then Devin Vassell is another exciting young great shooter on the Spurs as well. So I think I think there will be an interesting, fun young core to watch grow up with these guys.
Do you think that Wembanyama is more or less hyped than Zion was coming out of college?
I think Wemby's way more was. I think this is the most hype I've seen from a draft prospect since probably like LeBron.
You think so?
Absolutely.
I mean,
100%.
but I remember the age of Andrew Wiggins. They were saying that he was the LeBron.
But
even
then, I think the difference is the it's the versatility of a guy who is this long and this tall being able to do what he can do.
Yeah, I mean,
Andrew Wiggins was a phenomenal athlete. Zion also was a bit of a size outlier with his like weight and height and speed all together.
Right.
But like I always think it's a little bit of a difference when a guy is like over 7 feet handily, and this guy also happens to like play like a point guard.
Yeah, and I also would say that he's been playing with the French national team for a little while as well. So it's more of that this is part of why you're seeing more and more guys not go to college and play for a year, is there's all these other options. I mean, this is obviously an international player, but even from isn't that Scoot Henderson was playing
the G League
for a G League team, so we're gonna see more of that.
And so were the Thompson twins, Eamon and Oscar Thompson. Drafted back to back. They weren't in college either.
I mean, going back to the Ball kids as well.
Exactly.
The later ones.
And Wemby also played. He played professionally in France. On a mid-major French team that per some people who follow the Sam Vecini over the Athletic is a great follow for NBA draft and college basketball stuff. He watches a lot of the international basketball, and the team he was on was in a league that was pretty competitive for a guy who's 19 years old playing. And his teammate Bilal Coulibaly was drafted by the Wizards after a trade for that pick. I think his stock was elevated as a result of Wemby playing with him.
Right.
So Coulibaly is also extremely young and extremely raw, so I don't think he's definitely not nearly the prospect that Wemby is. But and the Wizards, obviously, the Wizards be wizarding as usual.
I mean,
we'll get to that.
We'll get to them, but they are a graveyard.
But yeah, other than the top 5 picks, it's definitely a little bit of a weaker draft in terms of there being a really high ceiling and a kind of middling floor. Like a lot of people, draft analysts, I feel like kind of concluded that basically picks like 8 through 20, 8 through 30 almost were kind of give and take in terms of talent. I personally really did like Scoot to the Blazers, Scoot Henderson to the Blazers pick, because Brandon Miller is good, but I just I don't see the upside nearly as much with Brandon Miller as I do with Scoots. Brandon Miller,
but he's a safer pick.
He's a safe pick. He's a great player, great length, good shooting, great athlete.
Seemingly more developed at this point in his career too.
But Scoot just see the change of direction ability and the twitch that guy has, and he looks like he's buffering basically. He's like a blur when he moves. It's crazy to watch him. He's maybe the fastest guy besides De'Aaron Fox that I've seen in the last.
I'm going to watch some highlights tonight, more than what I'd seen on social media, I guess. But I'm going through the first overall picks since LeBron. So, Yao Ming, 2002. Okay. LeBron, 03. Dwight Howard, 04 to the Magic. That's not going to rival. I don't think he was as hyped, right?
Who, Dwight?
Yeah.
Dwight was up there, but I mean, he was also the year after LeBron, so it's kind of hard to quantify.
Andrew Bogut, no, Bargnani, Greg Oden, who completely, I think, flamed out,
and unfortunately was overshadowed by the number 2 pick.
He had
Kevin Durant.
He had a bad an issue with his knee, I think.
He was chronically injured. He was an athletic freak and really he was a very highly touted prospect out of Ohio State, but he just could not stay healthy.
It's amazing how many of these guys ended up just still being really great pros. Even you think a lot. I think we overrepresent the busts in the NBA a little bit. I think about Anthony Bennett a lot, right?
Guy.
But
probably considered maybe the biggest NBA draft bust of all time.
And I remember at the time that was
a terrible draft.
Oh, a terrible draft.
Very, very thin draft.
But after Odin, it was Derrick Rose, then Blake Griffin, then John Wall, then Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, Anthony Bennett, Andrew Wiggins, who is, I would say, the closest in terms of buzz to bust situations because he had very, very high buzz.
Oh yeah, he was considered the second coming of LeBron. Basically,
Exactly.
He had the Sports Illustrated cover like LeBron did.
Karl Anthony Towns, right? Like still a good pro, but not Ben Simmons. But Ben Simmons had his time. Markelle Fultz, who's doing okay, but
he's trying to return to form in Orlando.
Yeah, in Orlando.
I'm hopeful for him, but it's tough.
DeAndre Ayton, Zion Williamson, Anthony Edwards, Cade Cunningham, Paolo Banchero. So yeah, Wemby is definitely the most hyped first overall pick since Zion. I think more than Zion. You can put him up there with Wiggins and then LeBron too. But I guess you're right. Now that you say it, might be the most since LeBron.
I only say that too because Woj and this is obviously anecdotal and not scientific by any stretch, but Woj literally was like he might be the most touted draft prospect in the history of organized sports. And like I don't think it's maybe that because like LeBron exists, but it's just very rare to ever have somebody.
Andrew Luck.
Yeah, I think there are definitely some analogs in football for sure, and in other sports just generally. But like the idea of it's I think also because there are very few, if any, analogs to him.
Yeah,
comparisons to him.
Oddly, in the NHL draft, Connor Bedard is the closest that we've seen since Connor McDavid. Right. Although I don't think
special. I think even just by watching you watch him and he's like you can see what the hype is about. And that's I think the thing with Wemby himself is like you look at the highlights, you look at this guy who takes a three, misses it, and then hustles to get his own rebound and dunk it.
Yeah,
like he is unbelievably untapped potential, I think, as an athlete and as a player.
Totally.
So it'll be really fascinating to see some of these young guys get out there in the season. But I think clearly Wemby is the one to watch in terms of what are the possibilities, what are the scenarios here, because they really are endless and could also be like super, super fruitful from the beginning.
Absolutely. Just a quick aside, just because we mentioned Bedard and the NHL draft is happening on Wednesday.
Oh yes,
Taylor Hall just got traded to the Chicago Blackhawks along with Nick Foligno, who's now in his mid-30s. But this is important for the Chicago Blackhawks, who is I cannot say enough about my disdain for the way they've conducted themselves as an organization over the past decade.
The worst, probably maybe outside the Knicks.
I mean, what in terms of?
Or Snyder and Snyder and the Wirtz family are maybe the worst owners in
yes. I mean, unfortunately though, unlike the Knicks, they've had success and won 3 championships in the Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews era. But now they get another generational player, and I think it's disgusting that this organization didn't get more punishment for their cover-up of the sexual assaults by one of their staffers on a rookie young player. And somehow, because the NHL just sweeps things under the rug, then they just completely tank and gut their roster. Jonathan Toews stays away with long COVID and clearly doesn't want to be, obviously, I would imagine, risking his health for this kind of team. Patrick Kane phones it in the whole year, forces his way to the Rangers, ruins their prospects for a cup by being just a complete zero or negative on the defensive side. And then they get rewarded with the first overall pick, Connor Bedard. So, I mean, I'm salty about it. But Taylor Hall going there, that's actually a big deal for the Blackhawks, who they're not going to have a good year. But Connor Bedard needs to play with some NHL players. And they were rolling out AHL bottom rosters at the end of the year, the Chicago Blackhawks. And then they'll have Nick Foligno there. They can make some moves to at least make that roster a little bit more competitive so that Bedard isn't just going into a shit show, which is not good for anybody or anybody's development.
And Hall and Hall at the very least, just even though he's obviously a little older, like, he's a little older and a little bit removed from his Hart Trophy year, and which maybe was 2 years ago.
It was longer. I mean, maybe
on the Devils he was a nominee, but he didn't win.
I think he won. Yeah.
Oh, did he? He won with the Devils.
Yeah, but
And
he
it was not just 2 years ago, though, I imagine. Let me just double check that.
Oh, it was a while. Yeah. And then
Um,
he went to the Sabres for 1 year
Right.
and it was like a prove it thing and got traded to the Bruins. But
He
it was a salary dump here for the Bruins.
but even though he'll be 32 in November, so like he's definitely on the older side. But I just think that pedigree, that also having the veteran leadership, having potentially the veteran tutelage possibility for Bedard from Taylor Hall, I think is crucial, and I think it just makes the team slightly more respectable, slightly more watchable for a like potentially generational talent to not end up like for example, end up like LeBron in the first year of the Cavs, even though LeBron was good enough to make those teams rather competitive despite how thin they were in terms of their depth. But I think a lot of the reasons, and I think we know this, and I don't think it's that groundbreaking to say, but location and scenario and circumstance matters so much, I think, more
Absolutely.
than just raw talent or like experience or raw or pedigree or whatever the case may be coming into a draft.
Yeah.
Like you can be an absolutely phenomenal athlete, a phenomenal player at your sport, have a really, really specialized elite skill. But if you're mismanaged, if the scheme isn't there, if the strategy isn't there, if there's a turbulent coaching situation, look at how different it was between Trevor Lawrence playing for Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence playing for Doug Peterson.
Exactly.
It matters so much what is extracted from you as a player, what a player it gets out of a situation, more than just, I'm Connor Bedard, I can go to the fucking Coyotes and be the best player in the league. Like it probably wouldn't work like that.
Yeah,
So
probably not.
So I think getting Taylor Hall, despite me not rooting for the Blackhawks in any capacity, is probably a good move.
Exactly. Let's just run through some of these NBA trades.
Oh yeah.
I unfortunately gotta say I kind of love this Porzingis trade for the Celtics.
It's so sad that he's back in our division.
It sucks, and and not just in our division. You know that like the Wizards are technically in our division. We just don't give a crap about them.
Course. Oh yeah, I just forget they exist sometimes.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, Wizards fans.
As does everybody. I'm sorry to say, but you guys have been
very mediocre to bad for the last
a graveyard,
8
a
years,
graveyard
9 years,
for talent. And I mean, Porzingis obviously needs to be a better defender, but I would not be shocked if he locks in a little bit more in a winning culture in Boston. And I have no love for Porzingis. I didn't want the Knicks to. I thought the Knicks won that trade, and I think reality made it clear that they did. He was not the savior as was described in New York, and frankly, I think has a lot of character issues that were not worked out well in Dallas. He didn't clearly work well with Luka, didn't do amazingly in Washington, but he did have like a quietly good statistical year from a scoring perspective. It's just how can you even tell how he's going to do in that situation? But when he doesn't have to carry the load in Boston and they have those two wings and he can essentially just score with mid-range twos and then potentially hit some threes, which Porzingis is pretty good at from three-point range. I think that this could be a little bit of what they need because they can't keep rolling out Al Horford. Porzingis gives them size and a real center for what they're trying to do here.
Well, I think, and I also think that something that became pretty clear in the playoffs and especially in the conference finals is that there wasn't really a huge release valve once a lot of the principal scorers stopped being able to score. And I mean that what I mean by that is like in games 6 and 7, basically the only person who could score consistently from anywhere on the floor, from behind the arc or driving into the paint, mid-range, was Derek White.
Yeah.
And that's not sustainable
if
you're a team that's trying to win an NBA championship. You can't have historically cold shooting nights from your best player in Jason Tatum, then have Jaylen Brown being maybe the worst player on the floor, both in terms of shooting and in terms of turnovers. Al Horford, who great player, great defender, all around.
He's in his late
He's
30s.
going to be 38, or if he isn't already 38 by the time of this recording. You can't rely on that guy for a lot of like high volume offense. And Robert Williams, while being an incredible athlete and a great defender, can't score. Is not offensively gifted. So like you need some. I think Porzingis in terms of on the offensive side makes so much sense because this is a guy who, despite our reservations about his fit with the Knicks and also just him personally, it was a lot of acrimony from Knicks.
I don't like him as a guy, and I had some connections that time with the Knicks team. Had heard some things behind the scenes.
Right, so like, we have that context, but purely in a vacuum for the Celtics, imagining him in a lineup where he could either A, space the floor for them.
Yes.
From beyond the arc, or B, if he's going to attack closeouts, which I think was the best thing I noticed from him in the second half of the season, where I really actually thought he blossomed in Washington, was attacking closeouts and using what I didn't think he did nearly enough when he was on the Knicks or when he was in Dallas, which is use his size and his strength to his ability to get into the paint and throw down hammers, which he does and he does effectively. And I think if he kind of finds more comfort just being more of a bully while still knocking down shots when they're open, he will open up a lot of real estate for the Celtics, which wasn't there before. But I think the only where I think the other questions that remain unanswered is, given everything else that has occurred with these two teams with this trade, is that what will the lineup look like that now A, Porzingis is there, and B, Marcus Smart is not?
That's the thing, is
and
that
I think
the defensive loss of losing Marcus Smart in that way is massive, and Porzingis has not proven himself defensively as of late. I mean, he had a very good scoring year last year for the Wizards, but it's like, can he lock in as a defender?
Offensively makes sense. Like, I think to me, offensively, like, purely on paper makes sense.
Yes.
But I guess what I was thinking about before we got on is that if the lineup is potentially something like, I don't know, like, I guess because Smart's no longer there, Peyton Pritchard would be their point guard.
Well, they need to solve their point guard issues in a different situation.
The point guard is definitely still an open question, I guess. But I guess I'm thinking if it's Tatum, Brown, then maybe Porzingis, and then one of Williams or Horford.
Yes.
I actually think mostly that could
satisfy
a lot of...
They can be big with Williams.
Right. And and Williams is mobile enough and multi-positional on defense enough where I think he could potentially mask some of the defensive liability that Porzingis would bring.
Yes, he can be the he was on the Rockets. God, why am I blanking on the defensive? He can be a PJ Tucker kind of figure.
That's right, in the sense of like someone who, even if he's maybe a little bit less, he's not as tall as Porzingis, but he's very strong, very mobile, can guard 1 through 5 basically. So I think that would satisfy a potential issue with Porzingis on the defensive side. But as you said, with Smart in Memphis now, and clearly, some people in the chat were mentioning this, but clearly there was something per some of these reports, and for why at some point this initial trade framework did not go through, is because there are clearly some significant physical issues that Malcolm Brogdon is experiencing right now. So, which made it so that it was tough to ultimately greenlight the trade. But
the big parts of the trade went through.
Yes, but did Brogdon get to the Clippers, or is he?
You might have to look that up for me. I mean, I think we went through but I think the Porzingis trade's a good thing for them. He just has to stay healthy.
No, Brogdon. So they think the open questions are, what do they do with the point guard position now that Brogdon it seems to have some physical maladies that are, a little bit more grave than people might have anticipated, and how do we replace Marcus Smart?
Yeah, exactly. And Marcus Smart, I love that for Memphis too.
Oh, it's a great. I think that is like an ideal.
He's a huge upgrade over Dylan Brooks.
Absolutely.
And he's going to play a similar role, but without all that nonsense and with just more upside.
Absolutely.
I think as a defender, yeah, I mean, definitely. I think on both as an offensive player and as a defensive player, that's going to be just a much better fit, and it just makes them so much more fortified as a defensive unit, and they're already like a very good defensive team. And Jaren Jackson with Marcus Smart, that's going to be a really fun defensive lineup to follow. But it'll carry them over through the 25-game Ja Morant suspension, hopefully.
That, and I also with I think the combination going forward with Smart in the fold, Jaren Jackson still there, which to be fair, the combination of Triple J and Desmond Bane and that Grizzlies team before the Clark and Adams injuries were actually pretty successful with Ja on the IR. Ja, had a pretty I think at the late December, early January, at least in the early part of the of 2023, had a relatively long-term injury that, and I think as well as there being a little bit of a suspension for the first firearm incident, where they actually still kind of kept it afloat and they were still the second seed going into the playoffs. So I think they have ways to get through it with Ja's absence, and I honestly think, as you said, the tenacity, the mindset. But also, obviously, Smart's only 2 years removed from being the defensive player of the year. We saw how good his defense remained in this postseason, and he was a reliable equalizer for the Celtics in some games where he could knock down threes more capably than I feel like I've seen him in the past. I think his offensive game actually kind of developed or expanded a little bit more in this postseason than I really was expecting. I think he's a little bit more effective than just being either 3-and-D guy or a defense-only guy. It's funny, I saw this on Instagram or something. The comparisons between him and Tony Allen are uncanny.
Oh, really?
Both Oklahoma State alum, both went to an NBA Finals with the Celtics in their career.
Okay.
Both joined the Memphis Grizzlies age 29 season.
Interesting.
And so and
Oklahoma State, I mean, that's not we're not talking Duke here.
Yeah, it's literally the not always by success, but kind of the secondary Oklahoma school in sports sort of. But so I thought that was interesting too, kind of the having those parallels between who I would say outside of Zach Randolph or Marc Gasol were kind of the epitome of the grit and grind era Memphis Grizzlies. So I think it's a great addition culturally, but I actually think once Ja is back, he'll be a great playoff tested vet to have on the team.
The Grizzlies I mean, I feel good about, if I were a Grizzlies fan, I'd feel, besides the drama with Ja, I'd feel very good about where this roster is at. And they could potentially be competitive with the Nuggets next year. We don't know how that lineup's going to be. We don't know if Michael Porter Jr. is going to be able to stay healthy this entire time. I don't know. I quietly really like the way the Grizzlies are looking right now. What do you think about Jordan Poole to Washington? It basically is Poole, I mean, there was no way Chris Paul was playing in Washington, so that was part of it.
No way.
And they're essentially making the same thing with their contract. Poole's making $28 million and Chris Paul around $30 million. But you can get out of Chris Paul's contract at the end of this year. I mean, he has no more money after this. So they get out of the Jordan Poole contract. What does it mean for them to... Are they going to try to extend Draymond, do you think, and keep him in town, or is he gone?
I always think with it's obviously way different. My logic with the Warriors, or at least the logic that I think that they would employ, has kind of been thrown out the window with the CP3 trade, and with the fact that Bob Myers is no longer there as head of the front office.
I think that's why people are questioning this. I mean, on its face, it doesn't seem like a great Warriors move
for a system that is for an offensive and defensive system that is completely contingent on speed and constant motion for a guy who, I'm sorry, can't move anymore.
Yeah,
he can't. Chris Paul can't run. He can't move his legs. He's one of the slowest players in the league at this point in his career. I don't know what they're going to do with him.
I mean,
it's mind-boggling for me to think that they would have any actual use for a 38-year-old Chris Paul.
I just wonder if this is the beginning of a big drop off that we're seeing for the Warriors. I know we've said this for a long time.
Yeah, I just he's just one of the first off-season or mid-year or whatever the case may be acquisitions that I actually think like transparently does not like. I don't see it working.
I mean, I don't understand how he fits on the floor with Steph
and
Curry
Clay
and Clay. I mean,
I don't either.
I
really
don't see him being an effective, really distributor to them. And like, I'm not saying that, I don't know if Chris Paul has the legs to be a plus on the defensive side either. So what are we talking about here?
Yeah, it does. I don't. It's one of, if not the first Warriors move since basically like honestly like 2015 that I think is like really actually like confounded me.
Yeah.
And as you said, it might not be any sort of accident that that's the case with Mike Dunleavy taking over those operations, as well as Joe Lacob, the owner's sons, Kirk and his other, I don't remember his other son's name actually, who are now sort of the heads of the front office after Bob Myers. So interesting timing for that. But as for Draymond, I think the reports seemingly in a YouTube chat attest to this, that he would be potentially re-signing with the Warriors, which again, in terms of like my thinking of the conventional wisdom with this team, would make sense that they would be able to get to come to terms with Draymond for a maybe 2 years, some type of extension. But my thinking is the only way that diverges is potentially if Draymond wants more long-term security during his age 33 year.
Yeah.
And if he wants more money with that, I am curious if at some point the Warriors do say that's too many years or too much money. And I do think a team will come knocking if that's the case. There's still very much teams that would absolutely love to get their hands on a guy like Draymond with his leadership, his tenacity on the floor, his defense, despite obviously being offensively limited. A young team, I think it would be the same thing. It would be a similar smart to the Grizzlies-esque move to get for a young team to get somebody like Draymond
his championship
on
pedigree.
Absolutely.
I just don't understand why you wouldn't, for one-to-one, want to keep Jordan Poole around to develop him. He didn't have a great year last year, but the year before, when they won the championship, he showed some signs of promise.
I'm more and more convinced, though. I'm pretty convinced that that was an outlier.
I hear you, but I'd rather have the unknown younger quantity that I could develop than the guy that's going to retire after this year who doesn't also fit our system.
Oh yeah, it does. It makes zero sense. But
they're just going to do
exchange
now stuff.
But I will say, and this is totally speculative, but if any of the reports of what Jordan Poole said to Draymond during their scuffle are true, and if Draymond does stay, I think one of the specific reasons that guy did not have a future with the Warriors is because of that very reason. But we'll see what happens with Draymond. Or if those, obviously we'll never know if these rumors are true or if it's just spin by Draymond's camp. But the reason I say that with Poole is I agree with you in the sense in terms of the binary between like keeping Poole and having CP3 on the Warriors. To me, it's a no-brainer. Like Poole's 24.
Yes.
He's almost a decade and a half younger than CP3.
Yes. He could be his kid.
If you're actually looking at a long-term future with this team, or if you're actually looking to see if there could be kind of a second order Warriors core after guys like Curry, Steph, Clay, Draymond are no longer there, then you keep a guy like Jordan Poole. You don't shop him for CP3. But I think, unfortunately, Myers leaving and the Lacob brothers and Mike Dunleavy taking over, and even some of the reports that Jonathan Kuminga might be on the market as well, I think that this might be a tacit acknowledgement that the young Warriors core project post Steph and Clay and Draymond was a failure.
Right.
Drafting Jordan Poole, shipping him to Washington. Drafting James Wiseman at 2, shipping him to Detroit.
Yep.
Kuminga not playing out as well as they might have wanted him to. Moses Moody maybe not playing out as much as they might have wanted him to. So we'll see, obviously, with Kuminga if that actually happens. But I'm wondering if that's partially one of the acknowledgments of these types of moves. But with Poole in Washington, it's weird to me because frankly, I kind of just think that they sort of traded Bradley Beal to Phoenix to then just receive a younger Bradley Beal-esque scorer who is not as talented as Bradley Beal.
Yeah, but they're tanking. I mean, they're trying to rebuild or something.
Because
but,
Poole, while he has his moments of explosive scoring and his moments of clutch play, fundamentally, he is kind of a bad decision maker.
Yeah.
He thinks he doesn't think 2 steps ahead. In the sense, I think he tries to and makes mistakes, turning the ball over with passing, not reading plays correctly, not reading defensive assignments correctly. And he's a heat check guy. He's a guy who's like, if he's scoring
well, that's
a lot,
good on a rebuilding team. He can just score and then see where it goes.
And I think it's a matter too of it's not somebody we'll obviously see, because of course I mean I'm saying this very, very charitably. The idea of Washington making some more win now moves to supplement the Poole acquisition, but that's me being very, very, that's my wishful thinking taking over a little bit.
I doubt
if it's just Poole, I think this team will not be very good. If he's the focus point, if he's like the linchpin of the group. But I think he would be good as a complementary scorer, as we saw him 2 playoffs ago when they won when the Warriors won. But as the number 1 guy, I just don't see it.
I hear you. Speaking of a number 1 guy who I don't see it for, but who's probably going to get a big contract at some point, is Trae Young. Well, I guess he's kind of the secondary story to John Collins being sent to the Jazz.
But which might be a referendum on Trae Young, honestly.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, look, it was framed in a way by Woj that they were trying to get some, quote, roster flexibility and essentially salary cap flexibility by trading John Collins, which means they're going to try to bring some guys in.
I don't like to hear that.
And they're going to try to extend Trae Young. And we were chatting about this before the show. Football is the sport league-wide I know about most. And what this reminds me of is the Kyler Murray extension. A player who has clear limitations, who has an electric ability to make plays, and it can be a highlight player. But there are probably half NFL teams that would say, I would never draft that player. I would never draft that player because he is undersized and can't see over the line and can only play a very specific brand of football. And that's when the field is wide open and you're able to play loose. He can run around and make plays, but can he sit back in the pocket, see over the line, read defenses, and like even sit in the pocket and get rocked, but you deliver the ball at the last second and you're able to get it out and win a game that way. And like in the end, as much as they're trying to bring spread offenses into the NFL, like you're seeing in certain college systems, air raid nonsense, that's really what NFL football is about, because you have NFL defenses. And so the spread stuff just doesn't work in the same way. I feel very similarly about Trae Young, where another team that went all in on a guy, I mean, they could have had Luka Doncic and they traded a first-round pick to get Trae Young instead of Luka Doncic, which was a horrific move at the time, I thought it was, and it's borne out that it has been.
And also, if you'll recall, too, it was at least in my recollection, it was sort of seen almost as like almost portrayed as a 1-for-1.
Yes.
But whereas
win-win, and I remember saying, no, it's not.
Whereas Trae Young is 6 feet tall, and as you said, he is a incredibly talented passer, incredibly talented shooter from deep. But the difference between him and Luka Doncic is Luka is as skilled as a passer, maybe more so, as skilled as a shooter, maybe more so, and also happens to be 6'7" and deceptively strong.
Yeah.
Can push his way into the paint and score, can create his own shot. Like Trae is slight. Like Trae gets knocked around.
He gets bullied, and he needs to be in isolation. And do I think that is winning NBA basketball in the playoffs? Look, like the Hawks beat the Knicks the other for a few seasons ago. We're forgetting about that. But even I think that his teammates, it seems like, are also starting to resent that style as well. Where it's like, how can we get over the hump with this guy just playing in this way?
And I think we've seen, especially since 2021, multiple players on that team. And I'm saying 2021, the year that they did get to the conference finals, beating the Knicks and the 76ers. I think we've seen that a lot of players on that team, unfortunately, regress a lot. I don't think Trae has been nearly as dynamic or nearly as effective since those playoff series. I don't think DeAndre Hunter has been.
Yeah.
I don't think Bogdan Bogdanovic has been. Kevin Huerter's in Sacramento playing great basketball now, but he's no longer on the team. DeJounte Murray has come in, but it didn't lead them to anything any larger, any more pronounced regular season or playoff success, despite the trade.
And the question is, if you're an organization and you've made a selection like this, and the player is like a linchpin of where you're at as a team right now, you need to make a choice. Are you going to cave to jersey sales and fan pressure, or are you going to choose to take your organization in a different direction because you see the bigger picture of like, are we really going to win a championship with this guy making max money? I think that's what, and dysfunctional organizations double down on those decisions. And they say, oh, we'll take a roll of the dice and see, maybe he can develop in this way. We're seeing this with Kyler Murray. Arizona Cardinals dysfunctional. The Atlanta Hawks are not a picture of functionality either. No. And I just see a lot of parallels in the way that it seems like I would bet that they're inevitably going to pay him. And this team is not going to go far. It's not going to. I can't see the Atlanta Hawks winning a championship with Trae Young. I just can't.
It's this very difficult, like, binary choice that some teams find themselves in when they're in this scenario of like a player has the pedigree enough, being a high draft pick, having some playoff success, having some very high level skill, but not being a superstar, not being like an elite player comprehensively, where you get to a point in contractually where it's like, do we kind of tear this thing down based on what's currently constructed with how much we've put toward this guy already, or do we give this guy $50 million a year?
Yeah.
And if I'm the Hawks or Hawks fans, I'd be very hesitant to give that much financial capital to Trae Young and that much of the team's long-term future to Trae Young. It's the same way how I feel sort of with Jaylen Brown and the Celtics, based off of I think Jaylen Brown, frankly, is a way better player than Trae Young, and like broadly. But
you can win a championship with Jaylen Brown.
But in terms of the structure of the Celtics team, it's gonna be about, any way you slice it, like, all told, in terms of the contracts with Tatum and Brown, like $400 million or something.
Yeah.
Like I might be exaggerating, obviously, but I'm just saying, like, a crazy total amount for a super max or near super max contract for both guys. It's a lot of money that's the Boston Celtics, or if they do it with Trae Young, that's the Atlanta Hawks for 10 years.
Yeah, unless they but then you could I don't know. I mean, then it's about, you can move on from them, but you're kind of hamstrung by the salary they're making.
Yeah.
And it's just you've just gotta hit on your draft picks is really
and that's, I think, what's the most, like, almost like stomach turning thing for some of these teams is like, you make the choice, then this happens, and this it's like a trajectory like what's happened with Trae and the Hawks. Now this is your bed, and you just got to lie in it or make it or deal with it somehow, because this is where you are.
Or and a lot of GMs are not empowered in the way that, like, say, the general manager of a team that had been winning consistently would be. Like,
right.
I'm sure Hawks ownership, or like, this guy sells tickets, let's get it done. That's the hidden hand, invisible hand.
Yeah, because as you said, it is not always about just what could be the best team. It's not.
No, this is a business, and
right.
The billionaires want to make money. Let's quickly touch on this NHL jersey story, and if we can pull up that article from ESPN. So the NHL has scrapped its Pride jerseys, just full on. They've banned them, and there are tons of specialty jerseys across the league for tributes. Hockey fights cancer. They do a military one, of course. They do a St. Patrick's Day theme. Women's history, Black history. They do it all around the league. And instead of just saying, hey, screw you to you psychos who are breaking cases of Bud Light in Walmart and who are so maniacally freaked out by gay and trans people that you're threatened by a rainbow on a jersey. Gary Bettman, the spineless worm that he is, has essentially said that while the theme nights are important, the pride jerseys have been a distraction. And what I would say would be the homophobic players who made it a distraction are the distraction, like Ivan Provorov, who got this kicked off. And then the league tried to say, well, let's support Russian players for their religious beliefs, which was, I mean, you can have religious beliefs and be a bigot. That doesn't mean that you can't deal with the consequences. But it wasn't just Russian players. That was another chicken shit thing by the NHL. It was the Stahl brothers, Eric and Mark Stahl. It was James Reimer on the San Jose Sharks who refused to participate and put a pride jersey on himself because he's all of them are so, their masculinity and their grasp of their sexuality is so tenuous that they were afraid to show support and just say, hey, we accept you if you're gay or queer or trans. We accept you in our community. They don't accept them because they're that afraid of other people and what that says about them. In the end, that really is what it is. It's just this fear that your straightness is under threat. And that means, hey, maybe you want to see look inward. Look a little inward about that. But I know it seems aesthetic, but there was this write-up here in ESPN that I wanted to highlight because these jerseys actually do raise money for other organizations. This was a really good article here by Greg Wyshynski of ESPN. If we could just scroll down a bit. The NHL's ban on players wearing specialty jerseys during warm-ups has frustrated those who directly benefit from their participation, including charities and artists from marginalized communities. In short, it hurts, said Mio Lindsay, a queer artist who has collaborated with several NHL teams, including the Vegas Golden Knights and the LA Kings, on pride jerseys. It doesn't only affect the LGBTQ plus community, but it also affects other marginalized communities, as the warm-up jerseys is a primary part of community outreach and charity within the NHL. It's also been a space for artists to express themselves and be able to create unique work under the NHL, and that venue has now partly been taken away. Let's scroll down a little bit to more of these quotes from some of the other artists here. Keep going. Yeah, I mean, these are the American Cancer Society here. This is more of the write-up. All 32 NHL teams held Pride or Hockey's for Everyone nights this past season, but several players decided not to take part in the pregame warm-ups when their teams donned Pride jerseys. Some were Russian-born players who cited religious beliefs or an anti-gay Kremlin law as justification. I mentioned these. The Reimer, the Stahl brothers sat out, and then the Rangers and the Wild just scrapped their Pride nights. Or the Pride Night jerseys. They still had a Pride Night, but no jerseys, which is also horse crap. And especially for the New York Rangers. Screw you, James Dolan, as always. The Rangers' PR department. And the Knicks is one of the worst in both of their respective leagues. Here's another quote here. In the final analysis, this is a quote from Gary Bettman, all of the efforts and emphasis on the importance of these various causes has been undermined by the distraction in terms of which teams, which players. This way, we're keeping the focus on the game, and on these specialty nights, we're going to be focused on the cause. Some of the artists who helped design the jerseys took issue with that explanation. I personally do not like the word distraction that I see being used over and over again by Mr. Bettman. T-Pop, a black LGBTQ artist based in Miami who designed the Panthers' Pride jerseys this season, told ESPN, a distraction to who and to what? The jerseys that I designed were worn by the Florida Panthers players for a total of 15 minutes only during warm-ups on ice. The NHL has been doing Pride Nights and specialty jerseys highlighting communities for many years now. Unfortunately, this past year, the universal climate for equality has shifted. Axing all of these special jerseys across the board is gut-wrenching because it says everyone is not welcome here on the ice. No matter how they try to say that's not what they are promoting, it's what they are saying. Other artists wondered why the NHL didn't allow teams to make their own calls on jersey policies. If this is in response to some players refusing to wear Pride jerseys, then that is something that should be worked on by the team itself, not removing them from the ice altogether. Daniel Martinez, who created the Devils' Pride Night jerseys last season, told ESPN. So, this is a good job, Greg Wyshynski, putting the voices of these artists on display here for ESPN. And
Greg is one of, if not maybe the best mainstream hockey reporter out there.
Let me also plug Shayna Goldman, who does wonderful work on the social justice front for writing for The Athletic, for these kinds of topics within the NHL and just like covering hockey more broadly. She's very good on analytics too. But that's exactly it, right? This is the exact time when you're supposed to come together and say, no, this is a practice that is important to the NHL. It's important to have these partnerships with artists in different regions. One, because the NHL desperately needs outreach.
Yeah, right.
Desperately needs new people to tune in. Desperately needs the eyeballs. Like, this kind of stuff of community outreach is in their interest as well. But because there is this very vocal right-wing minority, and because people are panicking because Anheuser-Busch had a tiny dip in sales because they sent one freaking Bud Light can to a trans TikTok influencer, it has all of these corporate entities panicking. And this is what's amazing, is that so much right-wing coverage about corporate pride is really just like, no one who is queer or gay or like outside of the money that's being raised, they don't care about corporate pride in and of itself. It really is what it means for progress. It means that companies have said, actually, this benefits our brand to be more associated with inclusion than it is with exclusion. But then they just put their finger to the wind like this, and they see that there are bigots out there, and they go, well, actually, it's not in our profit's interest, so we're scrapping it. Like, so the corporate pride in and of itself isn't making a real change. I want to put that, except for the donations from the jerseys, except for the money that's made, that does. But generally, it's more about what it means for society. And what it means is that under capitalism, you'll get thrown under the bus immediately if there's like a fascist propaganda campaign against you. And the NHL has shown very little intestinal fortitude. But these are all choices. Like, the NBA is not making this choice. They would never. And because they have forward-thinking ideals about the world. It's also,
right.
In the end, this backlash will be temporary. I have faith.
Absolutely.
I have faith that society will embrace gay and trans people in a way that will eventually get us out of these dark times. And then they'll look dumb as hell in the end.
And also, like, as you're saying too, like, this isn't one way or the other. This is a statement of values either way, right? In the sense that, like, as you said, despite the exposure for the artists or the proceeds to the artists, the proceeds to the causes, whatever the case may be, for the material or intrinsic or extrinsic value of these jerseys, the reason why a league does this is not really necessarily, like, corporations don't have values.
Yeah.
Because the values are always some sort of export to profit. There's always something. This is why I find the ESG stuff, the woke, so-called woke investments or so-called woke priorities in business, as like a cudgel by the right, to be so hollow, is because that's not a statement of values. It's literally them diversifying their portfolio. Having Pride Night jerseys is to attract new fans. It's to attract people to buy tickets, to buy jerseys, to buy concessions, to come back to a game. It's not really about the actual value itself. But
yeah.
when you take this kind of empty corporate gesture towards any semblance of social progress and say, you know what, I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then to even go further than just individual players saying that, the league extrapolating farther and saying, let's get rid of the issue altogether and let's just have no issue-based jerseys. No issue, nothing for breast cancer, nothing for any sort of developmental disability, physical disability. We commemorate nothing.
Yeah,
we commemorate nothing at all. Someone in the YouTube chat mentioned that there were pre-game jerseys from the Vancouver Canucks honoring First Nations peoples. Nope, fuck that. Not doing it. That is an assertion of values.
Mm-hmm.
Saying we won't even take the hollow, superficial, empty win. That look, the NHL has a pride flag stitched onto one of their jerseys. We won't even take that. We actively reject it. And not only will we actively reject it to make it go away, we'll actively reject any sort of posturing towards literally any cause.
And why wouldn't they do away with that First Nations one, right? They wouldn't do it, right? Because I don't want to blank on the name of the player, but there's the first Indigenous hockey player ever. It was White Cloud. There we go. White Cloud on the Golden Knights was the first ever Indigenous player to win the Stanley Cup. And if they were to do away with that, what do you think? Like, I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but what do you think that would make? How that would make Zach White Cloud feel?
Sorry, Zach White. Excuse me, Zach.
Is it Zach White?
I said Aaron, but I think you're right.
Yeah, it is Zach White Cloud. How do you think that would make him feel?
But what if an NHL player was like, you know what, I don't want to wear that. I'm kind of against the whole thing.
Right, exactly. The point is that they wouldn't do away with that because they want hockey to be an inclusive place for Zach White Cloud. Why are they doing away with pride jerseys then? That's because what you're saying is this is not an inclusive place for gay people. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Or trans people. That's what it is.
And so I say all of that just to say, like, there are so many fucking transparently hollow, empty overtures to so-called social justice causes. The CIA doesn't give a fuck about Pride Month. The CIA doesn't give a shit about gay people or queer people. The Raytheon and Northrop Grumman don't give a shit about gay people and trans people and promoting equality. They don't. They do it because it's behooves them to, as a company, as an institution, to gesture towards that. When you actively make a point of not doing it, that shows something more.
Exactly. All right, let's wrap this up here with some way too early NFL futures.
I love a way too early futures.
I mean, I'm starting to get the itch, guys. I'm starting to get the NFL
We got OTAs.
Itch. I'm getting into some fantasy research. I'm starting to check out some old highlights. The other night, Bradley, I watched Aaron Rodgers' 2010 Super Bowl run. And, I mean, arguably, outside of what we saw from Mahomes this last year,
that was a great
one
game.
of the most dominant playoff performances by any quarterback. And they were the last seed in the NFC, and they were just road warriors.
I remember that Super Bowl. That I think was one of the first Super Bowls where I was like, oh my God, like, not only is football really exciting, I was like, this player in particular is like unbelievable.
Me too. I honestly actually remember that Atlanta Falcons divisional game where he went in and put up like over 40 points, and I was like, oh my God, this player is amazing.
And I think because he's been in our consciousness for so long, we forget sometimes, not us, I think, because we don't, but I think like people can kind of forget like how singular he was as like a young guy.
Oh
like
my God.
27-year-old Rodgers. Like how old Mahomes is now was when Rodgers was when he won that Super Bowl.
And he
was unbelievable.
Right, and he had but he was even greener because he had sat behind Favre for all that time, too.
Absolutely, 100%.
Like, so it was just that was an amazing run. So I was getting hyped watching some of that stuff.
But I'm getting hyped in like a sick way. Well, first of all, I'm a little bummed because again, the Jets had another very unfortunate preseason injury
Yeah.
for an offseason acquisition. Safety Chuck Clark ultimately did tear his ACL, so he is out for the season.
I'm sorry.
As it happened in 2021 when they signed Carl Lawson, and Carl Lawson ultimately also tore his ACL and was out for the season.
Yeah.
So bummer there, but they signed Adrian Amos, which I don't think is a bad thing, as a kind of stopgap. Of course, former Packer. Obviously, want to get the locker room to resemble the green and yellow.
It's really a bizarre fixation he has with having all of his old.
Chuck Clark got injured. Is Adrian Amos around?
This isn't just like Brady bringing Gronk to Tampa. This is like him being like, I need 7 guys that I'm friends with on this team.
I need my 9 friends.
Yeah, it's just like, man, really?
But then other than that, honestly, post draft and post some other maybe not like a lot of like significant acquisitions post draft. Even just the excitement of like wondering where DeAndre Hopkins will ultimately end up. Like
this Dalvin Cook stuff.
Thinking about where Dalvin Cook might end up if anything ultimately does happen with him. I'm excited just like thinking about some of these rosters now that they're kind of mostly fleshed out. Just some of these teams that I'm not so sure about. I think I have an idea of who the good teams will be, but there are some middle teams where I'm like, are you going to be good?
Yeah, let's check this out here, because I think this will give us a sense of how Vegas feels. Again, way too early to make determinations, but starting to get hyped about football season. These are the over-unders that I was able to find on DraftKings today for each of the 32 NFL teams. And some of these stuck out to me. This is the first 16 teams via alphabetical order. We'll just run through it right now. The Arizona Cardinals have, I think, the lowest over/under, which makes total sense at 4.5.
I am slamming that under.
I know. I'm really hoping though that they get the second overall pick, so poor Caleb Williams doesn't feel pressure to go there. The Atlanta Falcons at 8.5 is interesting. I think you're going to see some higher over/unders than you anticipate in the NFC South because it's so wide open and honestly mid.
Falcons is interesting because I really kind of do like what they've done with this team. Me
too. Except that I don't trust Desmond Ridder an iota. I don't trust him as far as I can throw him, although they can put Heineke in, and he's at least shown he can start.
Well, with Ridder, I think basically they've shown him they basically say, hey, we're going to give you like a Corvette on offense, and see what you can do.
Exactly.
And as you said, if it is ultimately Heineke, like you said, he's run an offense before.
They are a quarterback away from being a legit
that's
team.
My thinking. The explosiveness potential on offense.
But I do like that they've been patient. I don't know if I would run with Desmond Ridder this season if I were them. I mean, I find, in terms of the unproven guys, I find Sam Howell's skill set to be more upside, better. He's a little bit of a poor man's kind of Baker Mayfield type. Desmond Ridder's arm is not impressive to me, but they've got a really good line. I mean, Bijan Robinson's going to be the man. Hopefully, Kyle Pitts can start to get more opportunities.
Drake London.
They've got
Tyler
it on
Algier.
offense, and they have some good
Cordell
pieces on defense as well.
Yeah, they definitely invested way more, which I think is they made that unit just a little bit more passable. So I'm pretty hopeful for them. And as you said, not a great division, so I think it's also they could capitalize if things go right.
But they also got Jesse Bates from remember?
Yes, signed Jesse Bates, which I think is a good move for them.
AJ Terrell's a top 5 corner in the NFL who gets no love, but
just by virtue of basically being like an island on that defense. But now, as you said, they signing Bates, getting David Onyemata, Shai Tuttle, I believe, or Shai Tuttle might have gone to the Baylor. So he got 2 other starters. They got 2 other starters on the defensive line that I think will really help them.
Well, they got Calais Campbell, who's
is
probably the last year of his career. So they got Bud Dupree, who that's not going to be a big game changer given how he's.
But they're probably just trying to juice up, just make their line a little bit stronger,
exactly,
a little bit more physical.
Depth. Yeah, exactly. Bud Dupree really flamed out with the Titans after being good on the Steelers. It's almost like the Steelers just know how to coach defensive line. It's kind of that part of it. But and linebackers, my God, I feel like the Falcons. I wouldn't feel confident taking that over, but if you gun to my head, I would take over because that division's so bad and the rest of the team's so good. This over/under is one of the ones I'm flagging. over for the Baltimore Ravens 9.5. Over.
I'm confident.
I am confident. I think the Ravens could win the freaking Super Bowl this year. I'm very confident in this.
I think if things pan out with what they've done with Todd Monken, with Odell,
Yes.
with
Zay Flowers,
J.K. Dobbins coming back from injury, like I think with Lamar back in the fold, happy.
and that defense is always freaking amazing. I mean, I'm sorry. The Ravens, stop sleeping on the freaking Ravens. They almost beat the Bengals with Tyler Huntley. He fumbled at the goal line. They were potentially going up. The Ravens are always competitive.
If that was Lamar, they would have won the game.
Yes.
Because Lamar, in the sense of like Lamar would not have been shy to the moment, or would have like had the brain fart sort of to like have the ball be over his head with the sneak.
I agree.
Like, it just wouldn't have happened.
I agree. And I mean, I'm not confident about that Bills line though. I wouldn't touch it. But
no. I still think the vibes are weird enough to where I wouldn't necessarily say.
I mean, I don't trust Ken Dorsey. I think the roster's on the decline overall. There's way too much on Josh Allen's shoulders. The whole staff could be fired at the end of this year if they don't get over the hump, because the ownership's going to feel like this is our window.
Yes.
So, and that division
Completely
is going to be incredible, with the Miami Dolphins having a top 3 roster outside of the quarterback position in the NFL.
Like if they stay healthy, I'm bullish on the Dolphins too.
Yeah.
And even let's say this is speculative, of course, but let's say that Hopkins does ultimately sign with the Patriots or something, and Bill O'Brien's back in the fold, so they at least have a capable offensive coordinator,
right?
Someone that Mac Jones can sort of trust, where he didn't last year. I think they'd also potentially be better.
I'm a little worried about, but I mean, the Patriots are not going to fall off. Like, they're going to be competitive.
That's my thinking. Is I don't think they're not going to go 3-14 or something.
Yes,
it's just not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. So
that defense is too good, even if the offense is not as good.
So that's why I just feel I have my deep concerns about the Bills. I'm sorry to say. Carolina Panthers, also another interesting. I mean, they know how to set these lines, right? Because that's like exactly what you would think. But I would go over in a 17-game season.
I would too for the Panthers, because I think I like basically every move they've made since.
Yeah, I don't believe in Bryce Young, but that doesn't mean that I don't believe in Frank Reich.
Right, in the sense that I think that the line is very good now. The offensive line is very good. They signed Miles Sanders. They signed Hayden Hurst. Obviously, I think they went for Jonathan Mingo in the wide receiver out of Ole Miss in the draft to give a little bit of a kind of like a dynamic, explosive weapon for Bryce Young. And as you said, of course, size outlier with Bryce Young, absolutely. We'll have to see what he's like in an NFL game for sure. But the defense, I think they got better. And they have some great up and coming, I think, people on that team. Derek Brown, who I think came on really strong in the second half of the season.
Oh yeah,
Frankie Louvu. I think this team could JC Horn. I think this team could definitely potentially be better than a 7.5.
All right, yeah, we'll keep running through these. I feel like we could talk about these forever, but I just realized we've only gone through 5 teams. I saw the time.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, look at the time.
Yeah, look at that.
The Jets hammer the over. Bye guys. No, I'm joking.
No, we always say I'm like, we're just gonna go an hour today, and now it's not happening. So, Chicago Bears. I would go under if I were to guess. I'm sorry to say that, guys.
It's not even that I'm like that negative on them. I just think they're still far away from.
They're still a season away from being super competitive.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of new pieces, so it's like they have to gel.
Absolutely.
The Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going under. Not that I don't believe in the Bengals. I could think the Bengals could win the Super Bowl. But 11.5 is a little rich for me in that division. Saying they're definitely going to get to 12 wins,
even if it's just 11.
I mean, it's the Steelers. Yeah. It's the Steelers. It's the Ravens. Like,
it's a tough division.
It's a really tough division. So I mean, and the Browns right below them are going to be better, probably. I don't like 9.5 though. I mean, I don't know if I could say they're going to be a 10-win team. I wouldn't touch the Browns. I have no idea.
I think I've liked a lot of what they've done in the offseason, but I think it's really a matter of, will Deshaun Watson play better than he did last year?
Yeah.
And I think the defense
Can he be the same guy after what he's gone through? I don't know.
I think the defense will certainly be better. They signed Dalvin Tomlinson. They signed Obo Okoronkwo. Like I think they've made steps to really actually have a semblance of a front seven, which they really didn't outside of Myles Garrett.
Yes, right. They needed a big run stopper, and they overpaid for my guy Dalvin Tomlinson, but he's a good player.
Yeah, he's good.
Okay, I'm tempted to go under for the Cowboys.
Interesting.
I feel like this is the year it implodes for McCarthy. He's decided that he doesn't need Kellen Moore, and he's going to run the freaking offense.
That's as in, I like everything on paper. The defense is basically completely intact from last year. I like most of, if not all of the offensive weapons. The line is still good. Dak is still good. It's always McCarthy. I don't know if I can get past the fact that Mike McCarthy will be making more decisions than he was making last year.
Exactly. I could see this being the year. I mean, and honestly, guys, like Dak Prescott played badly last year.
He did. He had a. I mean, that one playoff that was it. I think it might have been the last one that
the Niners.
He played very poorly in that
very
game.
Poorly,
almost like statistically unlikely.
And remember when they had to beat the Commanders to stay in and potentially win the division?
That was a bad game.
He was horrible.
Totally.
And it's like, do I trust Mike McCarthy to fix
get
him?
More out, yeah, that's
when he tried
to
actively get less out of Aaron Rodgers. I don't know.
Right.
You
sold me. You sold me.
Yes, but I wouldn't feel confident in that either. The ones I feel most confident in now are the Ravens over and the Panthers over. Honestly,
yeah, those two. I think I agree.
8-win team. The Denver Broncos. I also might want to say over just because of Sean Payton.
Yes,
but then I think about the division, then I get scared.
I think Peyton is a floor raiser at minimum, and I think they actually also have done good things in terms of who they've drafted and who they signed. I think they'll be better. I think Russ will be a little bit less lost.
Oh, and who did they get as defensive coordinator? I'm totally blanking now. Someone really good, right? They got Vance Joseph.
Oh yeah, Vance. Yeah, right from the Cardinals.
Yes.
Who honestly, with a pretty resource depleted team, still had a fun, pretty good defense.
One of the most underrated defensive coordinators
he's very creative,
in the league,
and he's aggressive, which I think will be important. For
exactly.
The
The Detroit Lions. I'm going under. I think
it's so much unproven.
Way too much hype, guys. Way too much hype for the Lions.
I'm excited, but I just there's nothing tangible to go off of yet.
Yes, and I just I'm not a believer in Jared Goff. I'm just not. And I think that team is stacked in many ways, and he took advantage of their very big offensive line. He was more aggressive. I get it. But with all this gambling stuff, Jameson Williams was supposed to be coming back in.
I know, and it's another variable with Williams again.
Yes.
After the season-long injury, now a suspension. And
their defense is still not good.
Jahmyr Gibbs, who I think is a good player, but they overdraft him. So is he going to live up to that draft placing?
Yeah, I think he's going to be
great.
I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a monster fantasy wise. But do I think it's the best team building choice for them?
Exactly.
No. Yeah.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. And as you said, the defense I think is still. There are good pieces. I like James Houston. I like Aiden Hutchins, obviously defensive rookie of the year. I like Tracy Walker. I like some of these guys, but it's not a whole lot different.
Here's the one I'm smashing outside of the Ravens over. The Green Bay Packers over 7.5.
Oh,
no chance. No chance are they winning fewer than 8 games. I'm telling you right now. This is an insanely disrespectful line because
and I like what they've done already. I liked both the Tucker Kraft and Musgrave pick.
I
two tight ends.
have been very critical of the Packers as an organization for a while, but they actually have sneakily a little more talent than they had in the heydays of Aaron Rodgers. And I think without him being so much of the story,
all encompassing, the entire team was narrative was structured around Aaron Rodgers.
The team's gonna feel like we can finally play ball now. It's not just about Aaron. And again, as the biggest defender of Aaron Rodgers for forever, it became too much over the past 2 years.
Yeah.
He was
They needed to separate.
And he got way too big of an ego, and it became way too much about him. So I don't know if you agree with me on that, but I'm going over for the Packers pretty hard.
Yeah, I think there's a world where Jordan Love is playable. Like I think there's a world where he's not bad.
Why do we think he would be bad? He looked fine in those games he played so far.
I thought he looked totally serviceable, and even if maybe he doesn't live up to his draft choice or isn't like a superstar, I think with the weapons they have a year older, I think they'll be exciting to watch.
And I've been seeing some of the hype about like the way other players are talking about him in the media. I don't have the quotes in front of me, but I take that stuff really seriously. Like you heard buzz. This is why I'm very high on CJ Stroud too. You're hearing buzz about CJ Stroud in camp. You heard buzz about Justin Herbert, right? Like that was another thing. And
Zach Wilson.
Well, there's an outlier for everything. But I do.
No, I think the buzz was like, haha.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Right. I feel that's what.
He's nice enough.
Yeah. I mean, his arm. Well, we'll put that aside for now. I'm going under for the Texans.
Agreed. 6.5 is crazy. I can't believe this line already.
So you're smashing. That's
I think
one
they're
of
good.
your
I think
most...
they're good. They might be the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
Not even because I like Stroud, but it's a really young team. The offensive coordinator was essentially like an assistant for Shanahan, Bobby Slowick. I'm not even trying to discredit the guy. I just mean it's a lot of like new people in new positions very early on in their tenure.
Who is catching passes? Nico Collins and Tank Dell, their 3rd round pick, and their 1-year tight end Dalton Schultz
and Robert Woods.
Yes, they got Robert Woods, who was bad last year for the Titans.
That's what I'm saying is like the team is, I think, competent. It's a lot of like B- players around CJ Stroud, a young guy. And I mean, Laramie Tunsil, obviously, maybe the best left tackle in the league. He's one guy.
Yeah.
On the offensive line.
I mean, it's been a one guy show that whole time. I'm gonna go over with the Colts. I think that they surprised some people.
I think so too.
I think Anthony Richardson's gonna be so fun to watch. I can't even. I'm like,
high on him. I've been high.
I don't even give a shit. Like whatever, fuck it. Like who knows if he's ready. I just want to see him run around, and then it'll come to him. And apparently, you're hearing buzz about him too.
And they have a capable backup at Gardner Minshew if he needs to straighten the ship. Like I think it's totally possible that either scenario could potentially work.
I feel pretty confident in that over, especially because they also completely collapsed once Jeff Saturday came in at the end of last year.
Right.
And so they have more talent than the 4th overall pick that they had.
And a smart play caller.
Yeah.
Like I like Shane Steichen has gotten a lot out of the quarterbacks he's worked with. He got a lot out of Justin Herbert in his rookie year.
I mean, and
Hurts.
I think that Jalen Hurts is slightly overrated, and I think that he was a big part of that.
In the sense that I think Steichen, I think honestly like optimized him to be where he is.
Yeah.
Not entire. Of course Jalen's the guy playing, but I'm saying like I think he put Hurts in great positions to succeed.
That's an underrated storyline going into the year. Like, how are the Eagles gonna
with two new coordinators?
Yeah. Interesting.
Definitely.
Jaguars, I'm gonna go over, but I don't feel fully confident.
Yeah, if I'm going over, I'm thinking 10. Like not a lot.
Yeah, I mean
their
they
defense,
have talent.
I don't think their defense is actually better than last year.
Yeah, maybe Trevon Walker can take a leap, but
he's gotta.
Yeah. I mean, are we
because they lost Arden Key and I mean even the linebackers, they put like a lot of money into Foye Oluokun, drafted Devin Lloyd, like, and I'm not even saying these guys are bad. Like, Foye Oluokun led the league in tackles, like Lloyd I think showed flashes, but these guys gotta like.
But how counterpoint? They're in the division with the Texans.
That's true. Oh, yes,
and the Titans.
Definitely, they could beat up on some of their division rivals for sure. The Titans actually might be the worst team in the league this year, potentially. We'll get there. Obviously.
Well, they have Vrabel, so that's
he doesn't
great
want that.
equalizer. Yeah.
Good point.
Chiefs over.
Yep, easy.
I don't care.
Next.
Mahomes has never lost on the road in his division. That's like that's 3 wins right there, plus just all the other Chiefs wins. Isn't that insane? All right, so here we go. Next batch. I'm going. Oh, God damn it. I don't know about the Chargers. Fuck.
No. Under.
You have a very wild, tumultuous relationship with the Los Angeles Chargers.
Under. I actually am so mad at them. I'm
going over.
I picked them to be in the fucking Super Bowl.
I know, but that was your mistake. You got too cute with it.
I think they will. I think they will be better than they were last year, honestly. But my concern, I think so, but I've been wrong on this many times.
We have to. I think I picked the Chiefs when we first started ESVN to win the Super Bowl. We should probably go back and check that. I think I might have picked Chiefs Eagles. I want to go back and check that. Maybe I'm just making that up.
No, I think you did pick the Chiefs. You definitely picked the Chiefs. I just don't know if you picked Chiefs. Eagles.
Yeah.
I picked the fucking Chargers.
I'm gonna go LA Rams over. I think because I think that Stafford will be playing more than he did last year, and I think McVay is desperate to make. I don't think over by much, but I think they'll be able to squeak out some wins.
I don't think the offense will be bad. This defense is going to be fucking terrible.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
That defense is entirely composed outside of Aaron Donald, potentially if he actually plays.
Yeah.
Of street free agents.
Right.
The offense, I think, is definitely possible. It could be good, especially with healthy Stafford for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And McVay.
I mean, the Raiders. I'm smashing that under.
Smashing the under. I think they could potentially, if certain things turn out a certain way, could bottom out and be one of the worst teams in the league.
I can't stand Josh McDaniels.
I also just don't understand the process still. Any of the moves, I don't really get.
I think he's arrogant. I think that he has a very archaic vision of what building a team really looks like.
Absolutely, he just wants to. He only after the struggles he had, he basically was like, I need guys I'm familiar with now.
Yeah, and it's just like
give me Jacoby Myers,
and Jimmy Garoppolo lied about his foot, and then they had to put a clause in the contract. Who knows if he's even going to be healthy this whole year?
Right. And
they got rid of Stidham, the backup,
yep.
who was a very if they wanted to remake this whole thing, why not go with your guy Stidham?
Who played well? Who played well when he was in relief of Jimmy.
We know who Jimmy Garoppolo is. Stidham has upside, and there's a reason Sean Payton signed him.
And I was just going to say who's his backup? Jared Stidham, and in Denver, Russ's backup.
I feel badly for Jared Stidham. I think he's shown flashes and hasn't gotten the fair shake. So I'm going under for the Raiders.
Yeah, I agree.
Under. I hope.
I completely agree.
Yeah. I'm going over for the Dolphins.
Yep, me too. Easy.
But even if Mike White comes in, I still have faith that the Dolphins can keep winning.
Essentially, outside quarterback and maybe a little bit of slight uncertainty about the offensive line.
Yeah,
all of that still is, I think, mostly settled for me because of Mike McDaniel's offensive creativity, and everywhere else is, I think, a good team.
Outside of quarterback, what roster would you take over the Miami Dolphins? The 49ers or the Eagles?
Maybe the Niners, and maybe the Eagles, and maybe the Niners slightly because now they have Hargrave.
Yeah.
But,
Jesus.
But even there, quarterback wise, I probably would take Tua over Brock Purdy.
No quarterback.
Oh, no quarterback. Still the Dolphins, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're freaking stacked.
Because I'm just thinking, Teron Armstead when healthy is a good offensive lineman. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, now Jalen Ramsey at corner, Xavier Howard, Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer.
Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb.
Yeah. I mean, they're stacked. They're absolutely stacked.
And they have that. Did you say Christian Wilkins?
Yeah, Christian. Oh, yes. Yeah. Christian Wilkins. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
And they have Vic Fangio.
And I was going to say, and also to top it all off, Vic Fangio came out of retirement too.
Smash that over. There's no chance. The Dolphins are unreal. The Vikings. This is a tough one for me.
I'm saying under. Because I just think that the 13 wins were I mean, they had a great season, but it was a lot of overperforming.
I agree.
Relative to expectations.
I agree. I'm going to go slightly over, and Brian Flores is going to put it over the edge as the DC.
Yes, the defense I think will be not only schematically very different than under Ed Donatel, but also I think they're just going to be way more aggressive, which I think will be great. I'm just curious what the offense will look like post Dalvin Cook.
Yes.
With what will it look like without him, and who will be prioritized now that Alexander Madison might be the lead back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The Patriots, I'm gonna go over.
I'll probably go over too.
I don't feel well. Yeah, I know. I do feel good about it. It's just tough. It's like I'm gonna be wrong about one of these teams in the division because they all can't win that much probably.
Right.
But
I just think Bill O'Brien will calm things down a little bit. Will stabilize things a little bit. And the defense is still going to be really good.
Under for the Saints. What the hell is this? 9.5?
That's preposterous.
I mean, I'm sorry, guys. Like, let me make sure I didn't have a typo.
I don't think they're going to be that bad because I mean, Carr is fine. Carr is serviceable. The offensive line is mostly intact. Oh, pretty good. Ryan Ramczyk will be healthy, I think.
This is the most overrated roster in the NFL.
Chris Olave is good. Chris Olave, I think, frankly, even though I love Garrett Wilson, but I think Chris Olave should have won Rookie of the Year. But
9.5.
But I agree. They're not going to win 9.5 games. That's with Dennis Allen as coach for that offense.
Yeah, Dennis Allen's. No chance. Okay. This is a disrespectful line for the Giants.
They also
disrespectful.
They also lost they also lost Shai Tuttle and Marcus Davenport. Like it's like they I don't think this team is going to be as good as they say this is. I agree. I would probably say over for the Giants.
I'm not saying it's not that disrespectful. It's probably right, but
I'd probably say over.
Because I think the Cowboys are going to regress, and I think the Commanders are going to be trash. Honestly,
that's the other thing though. Is I think is divisionally the Commanders I do not think are going to be good.
The Jets over under 9.5.
It's really scary for me.
I think 10. I think they'll get to 10 wins. 10 and 7 is totally reasonable. They're talented.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying over.
I'm not touching it.
All right.
With a 10-foot pole.
Okay, don't touch it. Philadelphia Eagles, over. I still would say over, even with the loss of Shane Steichen.
Over.
Steelers over always.
Yeah, I'm
over 8.5.
And I actually think that this team might be good. Like better than I might expect.
The Steelers get disrespected every year, and they win. They've never had a winning season under Tomlin, and with
losing season.
They've never had a losing season under Tomlin, and with a 17-game schedule. If they were to be under 8.5, they would have, unless they tie, they would have a losing season. And I'm not saying that's happening.
No, I also think, frankly, I thought Kenny Pickett looked better and better as the season went on.
He did, yeah.
I think the offensive line is I think the offensive line is not like atrocious. I think it is pretty serviceable. I like the pass catchers. Like I like Deontay Johnson. I like Pat Freiermuth. I like I thought George Pickens was, even in a small sample size, made some of the most unbelievably athletic catches I've ever seen.
Yeah,
he's for a young quarterback, he's a big play / easy big target.
Are you kidding? I mean, how are the Steelers this good at identifying wide receivers? That's amazing,
unbelievable. Say with how many they've done it with.
And they got they ejected
the Tomlin regime.
They ejected with Claypool, and that's not looks like
they were probably right to do so.
It looks like I mean, he has amazing athletic upside, but it looks like he just doesn't. For what he's struggling character-wise.
For what the Bears gave up for him, he was not really that involved. I mean,
the Bears overpaid with their first pick in the second round is what they gave to the Steelers. That made no sense.
And yet Darnell Mooney and I would say Byron Pringle were probably more involved in the offense than freaking Claypool was.
Yeah.
And but with the Steelers too, what I'm excited about too with the Steelers is the defense. I mean, Alex Highsmith had a great year. TJ Watt will be back from injury. Minka Fitzpatrick. Cam Hayward, while kind of the elder statesman of the group, is still very good. I mean, I think this team has they drafted Keanu Benton, who I think will be a great run stuffer for them out of Wisconsin. I think I'm kind of excited to watch the Steelers. I think they'll be better than last year.
Yeah, I always I love the Steelers in a way. They're a classic team and they're well run, and I appreciate.
And they basically always, and since Tomlin have basically been well run.
Yeah.
Like very, very few mistakes.
Yeah. They are a professional football team.
Absolutely.
And the Seattle Seahawks over under 8.5. I'm going to go over.
I think barely, like a squeak over. The issue, the concern.
I'm picking too many overs is my issue here.
But the concern is just Gino played amazing, but he's a little older, and it was 1 year of this high quality play. I think he can replicate it, and also they've done a great job of identifying good young players.
Their draft was amazing.
Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant in the secondary, Abe Lucas and Charles Cross on the offensive line, a ball for all from last year.
Their line needs to improve.
Witherspoon on the in the secondary from this year. Jackson Smith and Jigba to complement Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. I mean, I think they've done a really, really great job of continuing to retool around Gino after this past year. So I could definitely see them winning more, but if there's a little bit of regression for Gino, I could maybe see go the other way. Oh, and Kenneth Walker will be back.
Yeah. 49ers I want to go over again.
Absolutely.
You just gotta.
100%.
Buccaneers
under. They might be the worst team in the league, actually.
Titans under.
Heavy under. They also might be the worst team in the league. Commanders also might be the worst team in the league, under.
You're right. I mean, I was worried we took too many overs, but I think at the end here we're talking under.
Because the Bucs, yes, they still have Chris Godwin, still have Mike Evans. Those guys are not getting any younger, and they're going to be getting thrown to by Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. The offensive line, again, Ryan Jensen's coming back from an injury. He's not getting any younger. A lot of young guys on this line who were not playing that well last year. Donovan Smith is gone. The defense, again, brought back Carlton Davis, brought back Levante David, but all aging guys. I'm not super confident in any of the guys outside of those guys, and I'm also not confident. It's a similar thing with Dennis Allen. I'm not confident in Todd Bowles.
Todd Bowles is a terrible head coach.
He's a bad head coach.
So is Dennis Allen.
Two great defensive coordinators, bad head coaches.
And we know that both those two guys are just by the time the clock is ticking. They understand where they're at as teams.
They're placeholders, essentially, I think, those two coaches, honestly.
Totally. And I think that all of these teams are waiting and seeing how bad they might or may not be because Caleb Williams is coming around the bend.
And as you said about the Titans, Vrabel as a coach does not really accept like lackadaisical play or tanking. That's just like who he is. He won't do it. But at the same time, I think they might have the worst wide receiving core in the entire league.
Oh, yeah.
I think they might have the worst offensive line in the entire league, even with the addition of Peter Skoronski. Tannehill's not getting any younger, and his backups are Will Levis, who we don't know can sustain as like an NFL starter right away, or Malik Willis, who is borderline unplayable.
Yeah.
And the defense is a bunch of they're scrappy, they're warriors, all these guys, but it's not a lot of high end talent outside of Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry. So. Of course, fantastic players, love those guys. I just think this team could bottom out potentially. It's very possible. And then the Commanders, again, a lot of unknown stuff. How good is Sam Howell? How good is Eric Bieniemy as a coordinator outside of the Chiefs' infrastructure?
I forgot about Bieniemy.
How good are these receivers going to be? Jahan Dotson in his second year. Like, will this defense? They put a lot of money into Daron Payne. They're going to have to put a lot of money into Jonathan Allen. Are they going to be? They were actually, despite having a lot of like really high level, high octane pass rushers. Allen, Payne, Chase Young, Montez Sweat. They were not particularly good in getting after the quarterback. So I'm just curious.
And there's so much turmoil and turnover.
Absolutely, that's the selling of the team. Is Ron Rivera going to stick around?
And also the elephant in the room is that Caleb Williams is from Washington and grew up a Washington team.
A literal high school DMV legend football player.
Yes, and my guess is that Josh Harris, the new owner, is going to be very interested in the idea of having Caleb Williams as his quarterback.
I think there might be a potential Wemby-esque type thing that might happen in the NFL this year. That if there are a few teams who bottom out early, they might just be like, let's lose every fucking game.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to do. It's much harder to do in the NFL.
Oh, totally. It's
much harder because these guys are their careers are so short, so the guys play super hard.
And they don't get paid. They don't get paid if they don't play sometimes too. I mean, they don't get a game check if they don't play.
Exactly.
So, for sure. I'm curious if some of these teams are if there's a big injury, don't rush it.
Yeah.
Put the third stringers out, put a backup out the entire year, see what happens.
We'll see. All right. Well, that was fun. I can't wait. Why do we have to wait so long?
Now I just talked so much about the NFL and I can't watch any football.
I know, it sucks.
For another 3 months.
I know.
I shouldn't have done this. I got too excited.
I'm sorry for making you do this.
I should have just been I don't know. Over under. What about left right?
Majority Report wardrobe coordinator says
these over-unders are just a distraction from the Hunter Biden
You're right. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator says, pretty sure you picked Chiefs Rams and not sure who you picked to win. I definitely picked the Chiefs to win. That was a bad thing for me from the Rams coming out of the NFC.
I'm gonna check right now.
I gotta be positive. I'm sure. I'm like almost positive I picked the Chiefs. Fried Shrimp says Tampa Bay Kerr is about to make y'all eat your words.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
I would love to hear. I would love to see.
Maybe
it.
he'll eat a win.
Yeah, we need to eat that win. So lick your fingers.
J-Man Raps. I'm hoping some NHL players has the courage to stand up for the LGBTQ community tonight. Anyway, I'm happy Dame Dollar wants to stay in Portland. Well, he says that. Would Kyrie go to the Spurs, by the way? And finally, my boy Alec Manoah will bounce back, I believe, to be great.
Oh, I feel for Manoah. He got sent down because of how much he was struggling. Blue Jays pitcher.
Aye. Antifa Lockhart slammed that over on the Chicago Bears of Arlington Heights unless Fields gets hurt. You want to talk about the 10A quarterbacks would be pressured to sit out of the draft. Imagine going to Chicago after because they killed Fields. Yeah. All right.
All right, let's take a look at this.
Take a look.
Why did we both pick the Rams, do you think?
That was dumb.
Why did we do that? I can't even believe my brain would have allowed me to do that. Chiefs, Rams, Chiefs win. So you got the winner right. I did Chargers, Rams, Chargers win. Why was I so high on the Chargers? I mean, on the Rams. I really have no idea.
I don't know. I don't think we knew how bad Stafford's injury was.
Maybe that's because they were bad.
They were bad.
Okay, and your top 5 worst teams: Falcons, Bears, Jets, Seahawks, Texans. So
I did not do well on that. What did you say?
I don't know if I pick mine.
Falcons, Bears, Jets, Seahawks, Texans. I mean, the Texans was
yeah.
easy.
Texans and Bears were not bad picks.
Did I pick the Bears?
Yeah, Falcons, Bears,
Sorry.
Jets, Hawks, Texans.
Okay.
I would say the Seahawks were probably the only real outlier in actually being successful.
Yeah.
The Jets kind of imploded, and the Falcons were
more serviceable.
Mediocre.
Yeah. What did you say?
I think this was just your selection. I'm looking. I didn't pick my 5 worst teams.
You didn't?
No.
I'm such a control freak.
Yeah, you were just like that's my thing.
Exactly.
like that Skip Bayless. It's my turn. I get to speak.
Hate that guy. Although I'm coming around from hatred to appreciation for him as a cartoon character in the ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. You just can't take him seriously.
Yeah.
He's a professional idiot. He's a clown.
Yeah, he's a
literal clown. He's a jester.
Did we play that video? We did play that video of him throwing away his Dak Prescott.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, right. Yeah, throwing in the garbage. Yep.
And he's and you see him waiting in the door, 3, 2, 1.
Telling his wife, start the video. Fuck.
All right, guys. Appreciate you all. We'll see you next Monday. Bye-bye.
Bye.